Well, hello, Laura. How you doing?
Oh, I'm fine. Still alive.
Still alive. Well, that's good. I'm glad you're still alive.
Oh yeah. I found out that I have a sinus infection and
Oh,
I'm on the verge of bronchitis.
oh, bronchitis.
Yeah.
Jeez, that's not
No, it's not good,
not
but
well. hmm
I'm still functioning.
Are you at home? Did you go to work today?
Oh, I'm over it.
You're at work.
Yeah.
You're an animal. Love it.
It would drive me crazy at home if I
Mm.
wasn't. So
Oh, yeah.
when are you planning to see if we can get a Zoom together with that with Levi and his own
Oh,
family?
that's a great question. Let's let's email him back and see when we can get that done. Actually, now that you mention it. Um, hmm, yeah, let's find out what his
That would be good.
yeah. Where's there like it, usually there's there we are. I was gonna say, where's everyone at?
You know.
There's Anna. She's awesome. And everyone else. I want to make sure we got the notification going. Make sure I have everything set up right. Day before. Yep. Interesting. Well, we got the most important people here, so we're good.
That is true.
That's right. Uh, okay. Hmm. That was Marjorie. Okay, there we are. Yeah, we do have a set of awesome ladies here. Okay, we'll just get this show on the road. We're 2 minutes behind. Okay, that's okay. Perfect. All right. Um, Today I want to go over a little bit more about the process of wholesaling, like what that actually looks like. Papa Woody, I love that. So with the process of wholesale, oh, let me Laura, I'm gonna make you a co-host as well. You can help let people in.
Okay.
And Marjorie, a spot where you can just a second set of eyes, let people in. Perfect. Okay. Cool, cool, cool. All right, awesome. So yeah, I'm excited for this round of games. It's gonna be really good. I think we have about 20 people in it so far, and usually the first week there's maybe another 10 or so will jump in. So that's kind of like the perfect size for me. Perfect. Okay, so let's go over a little bit about wholesaling. I mean, I think everyone understands like the concepts of it, especially if you've been in the games before. But does anybody have any specific questions that we can go over? Because then I want to go over the whole concept of it, just as a 30,000 foot view. Does that make sense? Or questions, I should say. Yeah. Trying to use my pen, I use my mouse. Here. So stop me at any point in time, guys, if you have questions, anything like that. Perfect. Okay. You ever see my whiteboard? Yeah. All right.
Yes.
Awesome.
Yes.
Okay. So wholesaling in a nutshell, in its purest form. I remember. So I had someone explain this to me when I first started out. So I watched the 8 hour class of wholesaling, and I watched this guy. He explained it, and he explained it in a way where it's like I learned more in the 2 hours that he was talking about it than I did the entire 8 hour class with. I mean, don't get me wrong, it's amazing. It's really good stuff, but it was it just spoke to me clearer. Like it just made more sense, right? Sometimes people explain certain things a certain way, and it like makes no sense to me. Another time, and someone else explain a different way. It's like that makes sense, right? So I had one of those moments years ago before I even started wholesaling, just when I started to dabble into it or thinking that might be a decent strategy for me. So with wholesaling, I mean it's simple enough. Oh, there's Bruce. Let me keep my co-host real fast. Uh-oh. You have to be smarter than the programs you're using, Jared. What is this? It's a problem. Oh, there it is. Okay. Co-host. All right, Bruce, let me get a co-host if you can keep an eye. You and a few others. Perfect. So we have a box. It's supposed to be a house. We have a house, right? It has a very oddly shaped roof, but there it is. Okay. And a very cool looking door. Anyways, so we have a seller, right? The typically the seller needs to sell at it. He needs to sell quickly. That's the biggest thing. When we're looking for deals, we're looking for people that have some sort of urgency for the most part. Yeah, no worries, no worries, Bruce. We still love you. So some sort of urgency to sell, foreclosure, bankruptcy, divorce, new job. The list goes on and on and on. I mean, a lot of times we'll get deals just because it makes sense, or we can kind of negotiate it well enough, and that's totally fine. But for 99% of the time, it's going to be if the person doesn't have some sort of sense of urgency, it is going to be hard to get the price point that we need to make a really good deal. But like I said, you can't find like on the MLS where they might have some time, but they understand that it needs work, whatnot. So yeah, you definitely can find stuff like that. But for the most part, so let's just say we have the seller here, sellers, and then there you go. So we have the seller. I'm writing with a pen, and it's not very whatever. You guys can let's get it. And so we have us, the wholesaler, nice and happy. The seller Sally has lots of hair. We don't, but we're still happy. Okay. Well, I don't. What do we do? Just like if you're going to flip it or whatever, you would negotiate the contract. So we would have an actual purchase contract, a REPC, real estate purchase contract. For those that don't know, most of you know, but we have a contract. And on this contract, there are specific stuff in it. So you can use the traditional Utah REPC, and if you're an agent, I think you have to, unless your broker gives you permission otherwise. But I the REPC that I use is like a 2 pager. It's a 2 pager. It's transferable. Sorry, guys. So that's transferable, meaning that I can, if I don't want to, if I can transfer to someone else without having the seller's permission on it. Oh, you had to go through. Did anyone else have problems logging into the meeting this AM? Oh, Katrina and well, that's odd. So maybe that's. I didn't get any text messages either. Yeah, if they shouldn't have a passcode. Did anyone else have to put in a passcode other than Bruce?
I didn't have to do it this morning, but
Okay.
sometimes it asks for it, and
Oh, okay.
that's usually what I put in, which is the
Right. Yeah, but
this
Trina.
morning I was did.
Yeah, Jamal's like Jamal's always here. Jamira, excuse me. I always mess up her name.
Yeah, it looks like Jamia and Katrina for some reason because they've been here before, both of them, but not sure why.
They're usually like they don't miss it very often. Let me shoot. Does anybody have someone shoot her a text if or who doesn't have her number?
I will text her.
Yeah, let her know.
She just asked if it was. She's like, the link is locked for me, and that's what Jemiah said also.
Okay, yeah. If you don't mind
Yeah.
texting them both, see if it's asking for a passcode, that could be it.
Okay.
Like Bruce is saying. Yeah. Thanks, Bruce. Thanks, Marjorie. You guys are awesome. All right. So there's something specific in the contracts, right? There's the sell date. There's the sell price. So the price. Usually there's like earnest money. Well, always earnest money, but so it has those things on it. With the documents that I have, and you can look in the classrooms under the negotiations. Mine says it's a two-page repsy, and then I can add to it if it's a subject to or whatever the case may be. But if you're like an agent, you may have to use your own. She says she doesn't have access. It's weird. Let me send a copy invite and let me send it to her.
Is she
Thanks for
trying to
your
click on the
patience.
calendar? Is she trying to click on the calendar, and is that why she's not being able to get in? Because the Zoom link is not related to school at all. So I'm wondering, but she was here yesterday.
Yeah,
Anybody
she's
could be. So I wonder if her
So she's
school
on
permissions.
today's, like, when you pull up and it says the wholesale games, and it says Wholesaling Sub 2 Explained, and then it says Zoom link locked. I guess like when she clicks on it, it says you
So I
don't
wonder if
have
she
access.
okay.
school permissions. Yeah.
I think I know. Okay. That makes sense.
Sorry to interrupt everything.
No, it's good because if she's having that problem, there's other people who could be having the same problem. So
Yeah,
that I appreciate.
Katrina. Seems like
Okay, I know.
Katrina might be having the same problem too.
Yeah, I
So
think Katrina's having the same problem. I'm still waiting to hear back from her.
let me
Yeah, Katrina has the same problem.
let her know I just text her the link and she just pop in. But
So
I know what it is.
Katrina
I
and
can
Jemiah.
fix it when we're all done. Or messenger through school on it. So
Okay.
There's Jamia.
there we are. Okay.
There's Jamia.
Oh geez. Looks like it was going crazy when I was.
And Katrina.
Aha. Yay. Now we got him. Okay, perfect. Now where were we? So we have yeah, right. So we have the repsy, earnest money date. Um my handwriting's bad, but it's like it multiplies it when I'm trying to write on this with this pen, but whatever. Earnest money. Okay. So we have a contract. So now the seller's happy. You know, we got it under contract. So right now we are the only person or company. And when I say you or us, like typically it's an LLC. But if you don't have one, you know, and you're wholesaling it, if you're doing it the way that I'm teaching it, it's okay if you do it in your own name until you start making money. Then you can put that money into building an LLC. But because the title actually never transfers over to your name. If you have an LLC, awesome. But don't let that stop you from taking any action if you don't have one. So you can totally do it. That's fine. All right. So we have it in contracts. Only legal person to purchase that property at that particular point until the contract terms are expired. So what do we now? We have something in the contract. So now we find a Mr. Flipper over here. So Mr. Flipper is very happy, wants to close the deal. So we send out the email blast, we do a marketing of the deal, and now like, okay, Mr. Flipper's like, yes, I want to get this thing under. I want this, right? Um, and so we have an assignment contract contract agreement. And basically what this says is like, we're giving our rights to their contract to you. So my rights to purchase this property is now transferred over to Mr. Flipper, Bob the Flipper. Okay. And so at that point, we have a purchase contract and we have an assignment contract. Then we go over to title company, which I highly recommend REI title or GT title. They're both really, really good. Whitney and Christina, amazing people. So we get to the title company. Oh, I'm trying to reset. So this is the title company. And in the email, I'll send it through email. And so what I'll do is we'll send all the documents. So they get the REPC, purchase contract, right? And then the assignment contract. So they have all that stuff in the email I sent it to them. Is just like, I got another one with the address in the heading, give them all the information they need. And then at closing, because in the assignment, it says that they're gonna, let me talk about this real fast. Because in the assignment agreement, it has, what your wholesale fee is going to be when they're closing. And so Mr. Bob the Flipper is going to flip it. Excuse me. He's going to come up with his cash. So let's just say we had under contract for 200,000, and then in our assignment, he's going to pay us 20,000. So he's effectively buying it 220. Okay, and then we make 20K as a wholesale fee. So for Bob, he's basically buying the property for 220, and we have it under contract for 200. So we're getting the difference. Does that make sense? So the title company receives the money from Bob, gives the 200 to the seller, or pays off the debts or whatever it is, and then the 20,000 to us. When we're assigning the contract, a lot of times I try to do as much as I can, but a lot of times I just don't. But for whatever reasons, we don't, as we're wholesaling like this, we don't even have to show up to closing table, because we're at this point, once the assignment agreement is assigned, and now Bob the buyer is in position of the buyer, we're out of the deal. And so Bob sends the money to the title company, and the title company sends the money to us. Bob's your uncle. You're done. Any questions so far? I want to talk about the non-refundable. Does this make sense? Am I look chicken scratch? Yes. Come on, guys. I'm a validator. You gotta give me some validation here. It's just like, yes, yeah, we got you, Jared. Okay, thanks. See, Bruce, give me a thumbs up. See that? Yeah, that's so much to ask. That's right. Okay, guys. All right. Yes, even Laura did. See, even her sick at work, she gives me some response. That's why I love those guys. I love y'all too. I just love them more. Okay. Anyways, so with on the assignment contract, this is something I want to talk about, and this is where I differ with someone else. The fellow, yeah. So yeah, I'm executive validator. So I win. I want to win, but I want someone to tell me I won. So with the on the assignment of contract, there's the non-refundable earnest money. Now there is some different opinions on non-refundable earnest money. What does that mean? So typically the non-refundable earnest money is about $5,000. It could be 10,000. It could be, it really depends. So the non-refundable, I'm running out of room to whatever, non-refundable. Okay. It's the 5K that goes to the title company. So it's written in the agreement. And then Bob, the flipper, he's going to send that $5,000 before the closing to the title company with our agreement. And basically the agreement says, if you don't perform on this contract, you forfeit that $5,000 regardless. There's a few exceptions on that. Maybe if there's like if the title's not clean, we do go through the title work, and we've got it under contract for 200,000 because that's what the seller owed. But then we find there's a $50,000 solar panel lien on the property, or something like that, or just random things, whether the seller didn't know about or they were hoping you would just not notice or something, which I've literally seen both. So at that case, like it's our agreement says to buy it at 200. He can't buy it at 200. So I mean, it's then they would get back their 5,000 if they didn't want to pay the extra 50,000 to purchase the property. Does that make sense? Now, why would we do the non-refundable earnest money? Because I know there's other people that are in the Earnest community that absolutely hates and despises that, and that's okay. That's not a problem. I mean, that's totally fine. If someone doesn't want to pay the non-refundable earnest money, you know what I say to that? Makes sense. Cool. This deal's not for you then. It's fine. You know what I mean? no biggie. But the reason why they're not for the non-refundable is a lot of times the seller has a, remember we talked about earlier that there has to be a, well, not doesn't have to be, typically there's some sort of sense of urgency to sell. That's why they're willing to sell at a massive discount. If there's no urgency, you know, like I said, you can negotiate it, but 9 times out of 10, they really need to sell at a certain date. That's why they're willing to sell it. Auctions coming up, foreclosure, they divorce, they just need to get out of it. They just want to, you know, not handle this or not deal with this stuff. And so if Bob the Builder does not perform, and if he cancels like, oh, I can't do it 2 days or a day before closing, then we're stuck. We're stuck. Like Bob, the seller is in a worse position because now we have like 2 days before closing. I got to try to find another buyer, which I may or may not be able to do that quick, depending on the deal and how fast people. And even if I could find a buyer, that buyer still needs to get their funds together. Which even with a hard money lender that is 100%, it takes them a couple of days to usually get through their processes. You know, I mean, so if we can negotiate out, then that's okay. Like, but it really does put the seller into a bad position. So people are like, well, non-refundable, but I got to do my due diligence. Like, yes, you do need to do due diligence. You need to do your due diligence, but that needs to be done before you submit your offer. So before when you're buying, so for when someone's buying from a wholesaler, whether they're buying from you or you're buying from a wholesaler, that buyer, that potential buyer has to do all their due diligence before they even submit the offer. So they're going to have their contractors come through. They're going to make sure that their money partners are in on it. They're ready to go. That you know, there's any other concerns they may have. They run their numbers. They don't their due diligence. They're like, okay, cool. If this had to close today, I would do it. If someone and where I see people get burned on this is in when they pay the non-refundable and then they start doing their due diligence. Like, what? You're late to the party there. And then, like, I know someone in the community that paid $10,000 without really even running the numbers, and they were just so anxious to get into a deal that they paid $10,000 non-refundable, and now I think I don't remember exactly what happened, but they got into a deal that maybe wasn't a great deal, and so that's why it's important to do the due diligence and tell your buyers to do your due diligence. Like, let them know, like, when and if someone has bought a deal from the average wholesaler, they know about the non-refundable. That, like, it is not shocking whatsoever. If you said there's no non-refundable and they have a due diligence from a wholesaler, that would be shocking. They'd be like, what? Oh, I get due diligence time? Oh, sweet. Awesome. From any state, anywhere, like, the non-refundable is across the board, across the nation, just standard for any wholesaling, any wholesaler, any wholesaler company, any wholesaler individual. It's standard. Okay. So that's why it's important, like, have them do diligence beforehand. So when I get to feel like this is like a first-time buyer from a wholesaler, I'll let them know and explain it very clearly. Like, hey, listen, have you ever bought a deal from a wholesaler? No, I haven't. Okay, cool. Well, let me explain this a little bit how this works so we're all on the same page. So typically what we do, we get our offers. Our offers are accepted at this date because they're talking about a particular deal, right? We're taking we're getting making this final decision at this date. Just make sure offers in at this time. There is a non-refundable deposit if you are accepted, and so you need to make sure all your due diligence is done before you submit that offer before that date. If you need to get your contractors in there, just let me know. We can kind of figure that out. Sometimes if it's like if you're wholesaling a property where people live there and you have to schedule it, then you need to encourage your buyers to get their contractors there when they're walking the property. If they need to go back or whatever, you can do like a second. But it's you want to schedule it so, like, maybe there's 2 walkthroughs, like one and then the secondary one right before you do the the closing, the accepting the offer, so people can have time to get their contractors in there or their team or whatever. Maybe the money lenders like to see the property sometimes. So so that's huge to explain exactly what the process is for them, because otherwise you don't want people to get burned. Lily Porta, she did an example. I think her or one of her team members, or Lily Scott, excuse me. Keep on, in my head, she's always Lily Portas, but Scott. So Lily Scott, she told me a story where I think it was either her or her team member. They put in like $5,000 fundable, And then after doing some more research, they found out some stuff about the property and it wasn't like the wholesaler wasn't hiding anything, but it's just like, oh crap, this is going to cost a little more than we thought. And so they were at the point where it's like they're going to lose $50,000 if they did this deal, or they would lose quite a bit of money if they did this deal. And so they would rather lose 5,000 than lose 50, which is not a great thing. We don't want anyone to lose any money, right? And if you're buying from a wholesaler, you can negotiate that too. Like, hey, listen, I can't buy this deal. Is there any way with these circumstances, because this is the reason, is it possible to get the non-refundable back, or at least a portion of it? I've done that before, but the vast majority, I think there was like, well, no, I didn't give it back. It was because of, I negotiated my wholesale fee. So I guess that wasn't non-refundable, but still. And let me tell you about a story when I first started wholesaling too. This is before I was really firm on the non-refundable, getting the earnest money and the deposit. There's this one, so there was this deal in Magna, sent it out there. A lot of people it was getting a lot of interest. People were like banging on my door, and I had this guy, he came in and he's like, yeah, I want this deal. I'm doing it right, just as you're asking. And this is the time where I didn't like let everyone put in their offers, and I took the highest, the best. I was like, my wholesale fee is $10,000. The first one to give me that says they want it, it's theirs. I just didn't want any of the bidding stuff. I was like, because I was turning and burning a ton of deals at that time, so I was just like, I just want, just give me the funds up so I can move on to my next project and keep on going, right? And there's the pros and cons of that. We can talk about that later. And so this guy's like, yeah, I want it. Let's do it. Okay, cool, awesome. I sent him the assignment agreement. And at the time, I was telling people, oh yeah, it looks like I already have a buyer. Appreciate you, brother. I'll let you know if anything changes. And so I was telling all these people that already got a buyer lined up, I'll let you know about the next deal. And I sent him the documents. So one of his partners signed it and was like, yeah, well, I need you to send the earnest money deposit to title. Here's the wire instructions, all the stuff. And it was just one excuse after another that they were just, oh yeah, I'm waiting for my partner, da 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 da. And it was just, it was stall tactics 100%, like the entire time. And it came to like 3 or 4 days before title. So they wasted like 5 or 6 days of contract time when you have 2 weeks to get the deal closed and funded. And you had 4 or 5 days of finding the buyer, sending it out, blasting it out, all that stuff. And they just wasted my time. And then at the end, like, sorry, we can't close on it. Like, well, it's like, dude, well, then you need to pay me the non-refundable. That's what you need to do. And then, oh no, we can't do it. Like, okay, I'm all right, fine. I get it. You're off my wholesale list. Like, I'm not going to send you any deals, so don't bother. And then they started quoting scriptures on forgiveness and like, I'll forgive you, but I'm just not going to do business with you. That's all. Like, I still love you, man, but yeah, I won't do business with people that are going to waste my time. So I learned the hard way of not requiring non-refundable. So I tell people, so let's say even if I'm doing the bidding, having people bid, I will still have them like, okay, cool, you won the bid. You have 24 hours or, till the end of business, like if it's early, in the day, reasonable time, at the end of business day to, sign the agreements and then give me a receipt of your wire instructions that you wired as title, the 5,000 non-refundable. If that, until that happens, I'm letting anyone else put in other offers. So, I mean, if the deal is available until that happens, pure and simple, right? If someone gives me a bigger offer at the time, obviously I'm going to wait for that time frame I gave that person to say, okay, yeah, you got it, because they still, sometimes they got to move things around and get the money going or whatever. So that's and the vast majority, like 99% of the time, when someone puts in the non-refundable deposit, it's rarely when they don't close. When before, if I didn't require that, it was kind of a crapshoot, to be honest. And I left the seller in a real bad, like, I can make more money. We, as wholesalers, we can make more money. That's okay. But what about the seller? What kind of position did we just leave the seller in? And do you think we're going to get referrals from that person if we can't perform on our contract because the buyer just couldn't perform either, and they just strung us along, and then we end up stringing the seller along unintentionally, and now they're in a worse position. Now they have foreclosure on the record. Now that they, it's just really bad for the seller. Let alone if we're putting in marketing funds So if you're putting money to find deals, like you're sending out mailers or doing ads or whatever, if it costs you $5,000 to find this deal with the seller, or cost you $10,000 and you're gonna make 20 or whatever it is, because there's when you really get into the business, like that's real numbers, right? You're putting in that much in ads, you're putting in that much in mailers, all that stuff, but you're getting $20,000 back. Then it's pretty good, right? But so we're doing all that stuff, and if the seller can't perform, then we're out of that money. So not only did it screw the seller, but also screws the wholesaler. And maybe you didn't put the money in, but maybe you called 1,000 numbers to get to that one deal. You used a dialer, you were calling, you spent 10 hours on the phone making phone calls, dialing, smiling and dialing, and you finally got the deal. And then because the buyer couldn't perform, that deal's lost. So that's a big chunk of it is why is the wholesaler like it? Well, why they do non-refundable? That's why. And it's okay to do your due diligence. You should do your due diligence. If this is not a good deal for you, I don't want you to buy it. And you should be the same thing with your buyers. And you should, if the deal's not good for you, you're going to buy it from another wholesaler, then you shouldn't buy it. I've bought deals from other wholesalers too. Multiple deals I've bought from other wholesalers. And I do my due diligence before I spend that non-refundable earnest money. Okay, does that make sense, guys? I know I kind of really went hard on the non-refundable, but it's important to understand why the non-refundables is there and why you should all be doing that if you're wholesaling a deal. It's going to save yourself time, and it's going to be best for the seller. And again, this is this is the industry standard for wholesaling, pure and simple. The amounts might vary as far as how much you're doing, but it's the industry standard, pure and simple. Okay. So any questions about this that we just kind of went over? Clear as mud. Yeah. Okay. Did you have a question or no?
No, I was agreeing. It's
Oh,
good.
you made thumbs. Okay, thank you, appreciate it. Okay, awesome. So this is the transfer of title. Okay, or excuse me, this is like we're just transferring our rights. So our LLC, our name never gets on title because of this assignment. So it's just basically like the Repsy, just the name got changed instead of Jared Brenchley or Challenge Solver, it got changed over to Bob the Flipper. Okay, so on title, it only shows the seller sold the property to Bob the Flipper. So we are never on title in this scenario. Now there's something called a double close. What this is, so we have the seller, right? So seller, and we have the flipper, or the wholesaler, and then we have the flipper. Jeez, this is god awful. Okay, whatever. Okay, so we have the flipper. You want to sell it, so it's this with a double close, and there's reasons why you'd want to use this. It's a rarity when I ever do this, and you can use trust to actually kind of have similar things, but we can talk about that if we have time. Okay, so same scenarios before. We have a Repsy, we have a purchase contract. Okay, real estate purchase contract. That's what Repsy stands for. All right, and then but a double close is when instead of us assigning the contract, we actually buy the property and then sell it that same day, that same hour sometimes, to the flipper. So before closing, I market the property out. We find the flipper that wants to do it, okay? And so he actually, so instead of an assignment agreement, he's writing up a Repsy, but you as the buyer, okay? That's supposed to say Repsy, whatever. So it's a Repsy. It has, your company as a buyer, and then, and obviously there needs to be some stuff in the contract as far as contingent on you actually purchasing the property from the seller. So it's not like you're saying you own it at that time, but that you're going to purchase it and then you're going to resell it to them. So it's a little bit different rep, but that's fine. It's not that big of a deal. So what we do is we go to the title company and say we're going to do a double close. And so the title company takes this contract and takes the seller contract, and then they do so they in Utah it's a little funky. In other states, and there's a few other ones that you can't do this in. It's the same as Utah, but Utah's one of the most resistance to wholesaling. Okay, just because they think we're taking the jobs from agents. That's like I don't see any agents making those calls that I'm making. So what job am I taking? Oh, no one's. Okay, oopsie. Anyways, but that's okay. Well, that's a whole nother thing to talk about. So in different states, how that works, and so so the seller has his money, right? So he has the money because we're in the same scenario, right? We have it under contract for 200,000, and then he wants to buy it at 220. Not counting closing costs, all that stuff, but whatever. So what we would do is that the seller would go in and take this set of money, the 220 from the seller or from the buyer, from the flipper, and they would take the 200,000 from that and buy, or they would use that money for the 200,000 to purchase the property. And then so basically using one set of money for the two purchases. And then once it's purchased, and then they use the remaining to buy the property from us as the wholesaler, that same amount of funds. Does that make sense? So the title company will get 220,000, buy the property for the 200, give us the 200, the 20,000 left over, sell the property and sell the property to the seller and to the buyer, and then wham bam. So it's like purchase, but it's like the same amount of funds. So as a flipper, we don't have to raise any money or anything, or as a wholesaler, we don't have to raise any extra money for it. We can just do it like this. But in Utah, we have to have two sets of money, two sets of funds. So we need to have that 200,000 cannot come out of this pile of funds here. So we can just get there's plenty of other services and people that can do that. I don't know if Will, is Will here? Oh, I don't see him. I think he bounced. But there's plenty of hard money lenders that'll put up the funds or even private where they can be anywhere from 2 to 3% is the cost, because there is still a little risk for them, but if something happens or whatever, there's always risk to everything, right? So anywhere from 2% of that 200,000 that would be taken out of your fee. Sometimes you can convince the seller to pay or the buyer to pay those costs too. So that's pretty nice. So why would someone do the double closing? Now do the double closing. One, if you're worried about the flipper being, let's just say you got it for 200, but you're selling it for 300. Okay. And you're a little bit worried that the flipper is gonna flip out if you're and one thing, no one should ever, generally, and I'm not trying to say this as me as someone that has bought multiple deals from wholesalers. I don't care how much the wholesaler makes. I don't care if the wholesaler makes $1 or makes $1 million. If I'm going to buy that property, is because that price point that I'm buying it at makes sense for me, and it's going to make me money. It's something that hit my goals. It doesn't matter. If I'm going to make 50,000 on this deal, on this flip, and that's what I want, I'm happy with. But then suddenly I find out the wholesaler's making 100. For me, cool, that's awesome. Good for you, dude, because those numbers still make sense for me. I would rather make 150, sure. Then you get people, well, I want to make 100, legit. It's, well, no, the numbers made sense for you. You were happy making 50. What happened? What's changed? Because of you're now the comparison bias, or what's going on now, right? So it doesn't matter how much the wholesaler is making. When I'm buying a deal, there was, well, I don't know if we made more, about the same actually. There was one that we bought a seller financing deal off of we bought a condo, and they ended up making 40,000. We made 40,000. We hold it for years, whole thing. But we made about the same amount as the wholesaler did through all said and done. And I have zero problems with it. That's awesome. Good for the wholesaler. Good for him. Or well, them there's a couple, but good for them. That's amazing. That's great. So if you're concerned about that, because not everyone has my same mindset, and the most people that have the biggest challenge are newer flippers. Seasoned flippers, they don't care. They get it. Great. I want you to make a lot of money so you can find me more deals. If you make $100,000 on this deal, what are you going to do with it? Oh, you're going to put the vast majority back into marketing to find more deals, and you just closed like the biggest wholesale deal with me. So you're going to send me, like, I'm probably going to be on a priority list. Like when someone buys a deal for me, they're a little bit on the priority list. I'll make sure that they know about the deals, or I'll send text messages or whatever. I just made this guy the most money on this wholesale deal. He's going to put that money back into marketing and find me more deals. So it's great. I want them. If I ever buy deals from wholesalers, I mean, it's rare, but it does happen. I've done it a handful of times. I want them to make as much money as they possibly can because they're going to bring me more deals. Does that make sense? So if you are concerned about just not wanting them to know how much you're making, then you can do the double close, and that's fine too. Like, just no biggie. Then you can do the double close. And so, like, as far as like the Bob the Flipper is concerned, he's not going to know how much you made because this is a separate purchase. Does that make sense? Now, there's some cons to this. One, that you are going to be on the chain of title. So it's going to show like, okay, the seller Sally sold the deal to Jared the wholesaler. Jared the wholesaler sold the deal to Bob the Flipper. So there will be a chain of title. And so sometimes there is when the flipper is going to sell the property, if there's a lot of like change of title in a short period of time, some financial is so like when the end buyer is going to buy it. So let's just say it takes Bob the flipper 3 months to get to. It's a quick flip. They were going to turn and burn it, and it takes them 3 months to do the project. They throw in the market. They get a seller, and some like FHA or some of these the reduced down and more what I'm looking for, more restrictions, more I don't know, limitation. I don't know what it is, but like FHA, things like that. If there's like a lot of changing of hands in a short period of time, they're going to want to see it seasoned for a little bit longer than sometimes than like 90 days is typically what I've seen, right? So if you're like doing a quick turn and burn and there's multiple changes of hands, then they may have them wait a little bit longer, right? So there's a little bit of that concern when you are doing a double close. Make sure the wholesaler knows that it's double close. There's gonna be an extra purchase in there, so they can see that. Does that make sense? Like the double close and the set of funds, and why would you want to do something like this? Another reason to do something like this. So let's just say if like on my agreement, makes sense. Thank you, Katrina. Okay, remember I'm validator people. Okay. Let's just die. Here we are. Okay. So let's say if I'm when I was an agent back in 2020, when I was wholesaling, I did have to use the regular REPSI, and then I would do another like transfer of interest addendum. Now in that addendum, it does show plainly that I am transferring my title to this person, and it lets the seller know, it lets the buyer know what my wholesale fee is. Like, so if the seller's like, no, I don't want to, you're gonna make 30,000 on me? No, I want that. I want you. No, I'm only do this if I will only sign this if you raise my purchase price by X amount or whatever. Who knows? I never had that problem, but it's good to have this in my back pocket. Like, okay, no, I'm not gonna. If they don't want to sign it for whatever reason, okay, let's do double close. Well, I don't want you to double close, or I don't want you, I don't want you to make that money or whatever. Who knows? Maybe they're just being weird. Like, well, we're under contract of this price, and so I'm just going to buy it at that price. And so, at that point, we'll just do double close. We'll purchase the property, sell the property. So if the seller's not willing to assign the contract over, or excuse me, the seller's not willing to sign that addendum that you're transferring over. And this is only really necessary if you're using a traditional Utah bankruptcy. You know, that's the only reason why you would have to have them sign it over. But when I was an agent, I prepped them in a way where I never had any challenges with them signing that document, like ever, not even once. They had some people ask some questions about it, but other than that, it was like, okay, that makes sense. Because when I went in and having that conversation with the seller, like probably the first time we actually we got it under contract, I let them know like, hey, listen, I don't have the $200,000 in my back pocket, so I'm working with partners to get this deal closed. And so that's why we need access to the property. I'm going to have potential partners coming through, contractors coming in. So that's why we need access to the property during our due diligence period until we close on the property in 2 weeks. And so when it comes down to we got a buyer, Bob the flipper is ready to go. He wants to do it. Okay, cool. Hey, you know what I was saying? I worked with partners. Well, my Bob, the buyer, is so excited about this deal. He actually just wants to buy me out of it. He just wants to do the deal himself. And so like, I'm okay with that. So we just got to get this addendum. Nothing changed for you whatsoever. The only thing that changes is the name and top. Instead of it says challenge solver, it'll say Bob the flipper. That's the only thing that's going to change for you. Okay, here's the addendum. Great, awesome, cool, done. Because they understand that it's like, okay, I'm working with partners, the access to the property, and you know, if it's, I don't say like, yeah, I'm wholesaling the property. I just I explain what I'm doing instead of giving the name. If they say, oh, are you wholesaling? Like, oh, exactly, that's exactly what I'm doing. Yep. But I'm not gonna, because they have. It's the same thing with when you're talking about seller financing. I don't say seller and financing together. When I just explain what it is, and like, do you want to do that? Yeah. Okay. Cool. Let's do the paperwork. Done. Because there's negative. There's different opinions. There's different. The bad part about wholesaling in general is that wholesalers have earned our bad name. It's an earned bad name. It's not just because people are being picky or whatever. There are garbage wholesalers out there, and a lot of them aren't garbage because they're garbage. Sorry, that's probably the wrong way to put it. But inexperienced and uneducated, and not because they haven't gone to college or whatever. That's not what I'm saying. But they don't know what they don't know, and so you get guys that are watching 2 or 3 YouTube videos, and then they go out and start doing stuff that they have no business doing. They don't understand anything. They don't have any real mentors or whatever, and they're just like lying, deceiving. It's like, that's what I got to do, you know. I mean, so it's yeah, it's earned. Let's put it that way.
Real
Yeah,
quick.
yeah. Go ahead.
So I went to go see 3 houses yesterday. Very upfront about what
Rockstar.
it.
I
Thank
love
you.
it.
Very upfront about what my plans were and everything, right? I just got a message back this morning. They're still willing to work with me until the end of like this if I do put in an offer or whatever.
Yeah.
But I'm talking to the realtor right now. There's 2. Talking to one. He's saying that he's happy to help with this particular thing, but he's been burned by too many wholesalers.
Sure. Yeah, of course he has. Yeah.
So he's like, I don't think it's going to be a good fit moving forward, but I'm asking him would he reconsider and what that might look like. So
Well,
I'm
if
waiting.
you, and the best way to show, because right, it makes perfect sense that he's been burned so much, because yeah, I believe him 100% that he's been burned all those times, right? So for him to reconsider, like if your offer gets accepted and you find the buyer and you make it as smooth as possible, be like, okay,
Yeah.
she knows what she's doing, you know, and yeah, it makes sense. It makes perfect sense why he'd be work, and he's willing to work with you because you know you have the charisma and you know, yeah, yeah, it all checks out for me. So once you close this deal, and then it's like, okay, this is great, and you know, she's actually does what she says. She's not, you know, all that stuff. So yeah, exactly. That's a perfect, you know, asterisk to add on to the point, or you know, emphasis on the point, right? Love it. Okay. So yeah, that's when I would. I don't go in tangents ever. What are you guys talking about? So that's when I would use another reason why I would use the double close if the seller just straight up doesn't want to sign the agreement, right? They don't want to do the assignment agreement because it's you know, reps or whatever, and that's okay, right? That's when we have double close. So no biggie. It's just going to cost. It's going to cost more because you have to get an extra set of funds, and then also it's an extra closing. Now there is another way of doing it where you can do it into a trust. So this is a way we're doing a double close. So we have, okay, so we have the seller. Okay, so we have the seller. Yeah, whatever. Okay, the seller. Oh my goodness gracious, right. Okay, wholesaler. And then the flipper, Bob the flipper. Okay, so if we want to do double close for whatever reason, right? What we could do is like in the REPC, what we're gonna do is we're actually gonna have the seller. This is similar we can do with like a seller financing stuff, or subject to. So if we're doing a subject to, for example, with an FHA loan or Utah Housing, things like that, it's very. I mean, it's Utah Housing and FHA. They will definitely call the note due if you like a sub two. But what you do is like the seller would put their property into a trust. And then basically what we would do is buy the trust for the purchase price of the house. So the trust is like it's another entity, right? So it's used in estate planning. This is used for, it's very similar to what an LLC is used, but different for many, many reasons. But so we would transfer the title over to the trust, and it happens like that same day. The Whitney REI title like does it all included. Like I just send her, this is what we're doing. Here you go, do the thing. And so she will create the trust, have the sellers sign all the paperwork they need to sign, and then the sellers give us the right, or give us the control of the trust, and then they remove themselves from the trust. Like that happens all at once. And so, and as we're wholesaling it, it actually, instead of us, it's actually the Bob the flipper, right? And then we just get paid the fee. So this is it. It's the same. And this is where we can use the one set of money for the entire transaction here in Utah, instead of having to get two set of numbers if you're doing double close, because we're using a trust. So again, title gets transferred to the trust control gets transferred over to the flipper, and then we have a joint venture agreement with the flipper that they're going to pay us the $100,000 as a fee, or $30,000 wholesale fee, or whatever the amount is, right? And that joint venture gets that's part of the purchase, so 200 to the seller, 200 or 100 to us, or whatever the difference is. Does that make sense as far as like and I don't need to know like all of every little minute detail. I just need to know someone that does. So I'll just send it over the paperwork that needs to be done, the joint ventures, the trusts, the trust creations. I'll send it over to Whitney or or Christina and GT Title, and then they do their magic. And I just give them the paperwork, and then I get paid the money. So that's all I know. But what questions do we have? I know I joke that's all I know, but I know a lot more. But what does that make sense? Like with the trust, this is a different way of doing it. And this is really good for like subject to specifically, like because it doesn't show. Does anybody know what's the due on sell clause if you're doing a subject to? What's the due on sell? So every mortgage has this clause.
It means that if it ever changes hands, the actual property itself, sale of some sort or transfer of title or any of that happens, the bank can call the note completely and fully due.
Right. So if there's a sale on the property, the mortgage company say, okay, and you're sure you're making payments, but we want you to we want the whole note's due. Like, so Bruce perfectly explained it, right? So with certain mortgages and things like that, if you transfer it over to a trust first before any purchase is made, right? Before any well, if there is no purchase after that, it's very common for a seller to put their property into a trust. That's like normal. There's nothing weird about that. That's not going to raise any red flags whatsoever. And so as far as like the title shows, it shows that we had the seller Sally, is on title, and then it moved over to the trust name, which you can make the trust like I normally just make the trust name the address of the property. So address is 123 Flake Street. or not, no, sorry. The trust name is 123 Fake Street. Okay. And then we just take control of the trust and then remove the control of the trust from the sellers. And then Bob's your uncle. We're good to go. So this doesn't necessarily raise any red flags if you're doing like a subject to deal or like that, because it's very normal. It's like, oh yeah, this moves over to a trust, no biggie. Yeah, that's. Do we have any questions about? I think the last little bit with the trust and stuff might be have more questions, but about this the shenanigans that I'm writing down over here.
I do have one question I've been wondering about. So during the due diligence part, right?
Yeah.
That's where you will be using some of your funds, correct, to get the inspection done and then also paying the contractor to do an estimate?
You can do that. I don't do that. So as far as like the inspection, getting the it's kind of nice if you have that stuff. I mean, it makes the deal more attractive to the
Mhm.
buyers, like by far. So if I'm looking at two deals and the profit margin is the same, but one deal has like they've already had an inspector go through, they already had a contractor go through, give them there's real life bids.
Mhm.
I mean, that's a lot more attractive than the other, right? The thing is, it does get kind of pricey when you're doing that. If you're takes 3 under contract to close a deal,
Mhm.
doing it 3 times. If it's $500 each time you're doing an inspection, and then the contractor, and again, the contractor is only going to go so many times without getting any business before he stops.
Mhm.
You know, so yes, you definitely can do that. I don't, and so that's why it's like during the due diligence time, like when I send it out there, like yeah, bring your contractors, do all that stuff.
I see.
If they want to do a meth test, cool, do the meth test.
Okay.
We can arrange to get you in there. There's very rare times where you can't, get people access to the property, things like there's some, odd deals out for the average deal. Yeah, sure.
So you market it in a way where they do that. So
Yes.
you typically just get the property under contract and then jump right into marketing during your due diligence
Yep.
time.
Exactly.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Are you buying tech for your business? Buy better with a Newegg business account. Unlock volume discounts, credit lines, professional support. It's free. Sign up now. Apply for net 30 terms and
Is
tax
that me?
exemption to add that extra financial flexibility. Weekly.
Okay. I don't know. Anyways, but so yeah, absolutely. That's a great question to ask. I'm glad you threw it out there. Like and again, it's not necessarily terrible. And there's been times where I've gotten like with hard money lenders and then had them look at my deals beforehand, and then so then as I'm marketing it, I can say this deal's already been approved by a hard money lender. If you want to use them, let me know. I'll give you his contact info. Which is it just makes the deal more attractive. So
Yeah.
if you really want it to that deal to sing and like really get it to like cool, this is a no brainer, absolutely, let me do this, then yeah, you can definitely do all of that stuff and provide all that value. But you just want to make sure that when you want to make sure that this is just done as a courtesy,
Yeah.
and not like this is like this. I'm telling you exactly what it's going to be like, what the rehab cost is going to be like. No, I'm telling you what this guy says it's going to cost. If you want to use him, his number.
Hmm.
I'm not saying it's going to cost that. This guy's saying it's going to cost that. If you want to use them, go ahead. If not, use your own guy.
So
I'm not saying this inspector had found everything. I'm just saying I had an inspection. Here's the report. There you go.
so hypothetically, if I do, put in an offer later today or whatever,
Mm-hmm.
accept it, then the marketing starts, or getting the contract and then the marketing starts after that.
Yeah. So yeah, get it under contract, and then it's like, okay, now we're on. I'm going to find a buyer,
Okay.
right? So it's you do your due diligence, your analysis, and then like, cool, this makes sense. Let's do it.
So diligence for you is just the analysis piece, and then after that, it's on someone.
Right. It's the
Okay.
negotiations. It's like
Okay.
then throw it out. Yeah. Right. So I said that a little confusing, right? But
Okay.
yeah,
Thank you.
you're absolutely 100% right. So what questions do we have on like the wholesale process or anything like in what we've just went over, guys?
Hey, Jared,
Yes.
do you normally allow a due diligence period? Like without, do you just wait? They have to have their deposit in, they're non-refundable for.
Yes. So like I was saying earlier, the due diligence needs to be before they put in the offer. And that's true for any real wholesaler that does more than one. Like
Okay.
it's a standard industry standard. Like And that's why, like, if you're gonna buy something from a wholesaler, like as an example, or if you're like, you want to make sure that all your ducks are lined in a row. It makes sense. Okay, awesome. This deal, if I could close on it today, I would. Here's my 5,000 non-refundable.
Okay.
Right. And and wholesalers, like, a strong, like, if you guys, when you guys are wholesaling, like, I would strongly insist that you have a non-refundable, because you will get burned 9 times out of 10. Like,
Right.
it's crazy how 'cause, I mean, I don't necessarily blame the people either. If you're not going to require it, they're like, okay, great. And then it's like a regular deal, like on the market. I can just, take my time and do this, and then it burns the seller more than anyone else.
Right.
It's no bueno for anybody, right? So,
I get that.
but great question. Great question. Awesome. Okay, great. So that was the time, the basics of, like, the whole concept of wholesaling in general, right? And with more about the seller financing stuff, it really doesn't necessarily change with seller financing. When you're wholesaling, it just becomes more attractive because you're just assigning the rights of like the subject to, or the seller financing, or wraparound, or whatever that is. That's just being part of the deal that they are going to take in your stead, right? So if we negotiated a great seller financing terms, whether this is traditional seller financing or sub 2 or whatever, cool, awesome. And then we market it. I got a great subject to deal. I got a great seller financing deal. Here's the numbers. Let me know, or we're going to do walkthrough this date, or let me know I got the lockbox, blah, blah, blah. And then it becomes a lot more attractive, and people will pay typically higher for creative financing deals, because their prices are lower as far as, like, Costco. They're not using hard money for that flip. They're just paying 4% that you negotiated, which is a lot better than 12 and 2 points in the very beginning. So it brings a lot more profitability, so they can, if they need to, they can purchase the property, and they don't have to go through the work of getting qualified to, or going through the hassle of raising the funds. It's just there. Or if it's like, great, this is giving me a great buy and hold, or fix and hold. I'm gonna and the seller financing is like a subject to for the next 25 years. This is gonna cash flow great. It's gonna appreciate great. Phenomenal. I'll pay. I'll overprice it, especially if it's a great interest rate. So it's phenomenal. Doing it with seller financing is the creme of the creme. All right. Any last chances for questions? If not, we're gonna call it a day. Awesome. Okay. Sweet, guys. Appreciate y'all. Anna, did you have a question? No? Good? Okay.
Thanks, Jared.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate y'all.
Yeah.
Thanks, Jared.